Hi, welcome back to The Braid and the Boys, and today we have a very special interview. We have not one, but two awesome guests. First up, we have Mark Waid, friend of the channel, returning to the channel. You know him from Kingdom Come, my favorite Daredevil run, the most needed Superman Absolute, Birthright, Irredeemable, which I read after our last interview. You sold me on it. And joining him today is AJ Light. AJ helped build the Alpha Clash universe from the ground up. He's a lifelong performer and director and a creative force behind Cirque du Soleil, which is crazy. That was crazy to learn. Yeah. And one of the universe architects shaping the next wave of stories. So today we're talking about a upcoming comic book Kickstarter called Alpha Clash Rising Empire. So to give you guys a little segue of it, is a mystery set 5 years after the Awakening, where alphas are disappearing and a reluctant genius gets pulled into a new storm of allies and enemies. So this is very exciting, guys. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
So I have questions for both of us, but one thing I wanted to say that I saw an interview, Mark, with you recently, or a clip online where you talk about how you a Superman comic that you read that has been a cornerstone to your writing style, your foundation, where you write heroes from the inside out. And one recent thing I read of yours that I think is a perfect example of that is your new Action Comics run with a young Superboy, where he has never thrown a punch before. And he's trying to figure out, how hard can I throw a punch? Because I don't want to hurt someone. I want to stop the bad guy.
And he's having to do it in mid-punch. So,
yeah, he's like throwing his punch. He's like, wait, how hard should,
how can I hit?
I think that's an excellent recent example of how you write characters from the inside out. So first I want to ask, guys, how did you two first get connected?
We got connected through a mutual friend of mine named Eric Calderon, who is one of those guys who is just, the hub to a wheel with many spokes. I mean, Eric just knows everybody and is able to connect people. And he knew that I would be comfortable in this universe because we've worked together on animation stuff. And, he set us up. We had a great conversation, and I was very taken by the whole Alpha Clash, the storyline, the system, everything right off the bat. So I was in.
Nice. So AJ, this universe started, I believe, with your novel, right? So first, before we get started, how many different medias is Alpha Clash in? There's a trading card, there's a board game, I think. Where all the things is this in?
So we have the trading card, we have the board game, we have the novel, we have an audio book, and then we have our audio book of the novel, and then we have our comic books. And so we have three storylines that are coming out with in the next year or two now.
That's awesome. So yeah, Mark, you said that they explained to you the universe. When you first started learning about the lore of this new universe, Alpha Clash, what was one thing that AJ or whoever explained to you about this universe, one piece of lore that made you go, oh, this could be something, this could be big?
That that it's not just limited to Earth, that there's a cosmic connection to all this stuff that was unique, and I'm used to seeing superhero universes that are all very much the same, but this didn't feel the same. It felt like there was a much richer mythology behind it, and it seemed like it was a lot more well thought out.
Yeah, that's awesome. AJ, how did it feel to find out that you were going to have such a legendary, prolific writer like Mark Waid in your universe? Look, we both have our leather-bound Kingdom Comes.
Okay, all right, nice.
Yeah, but not that mine is better. Mine does. Yeah. Mine does have a signature, so you gotta sign AJ's for him.
He taught me. He taught me.
Well, this next time we're together, next time I come down to Cirque du Soleil, yes,
that's it,
right? So yes, Cirque du Soleil. Talk to me about that. So, how do you go from there? Because in a weird way, I see the transition of like you have these flexible superhuman people in the real world doing flips and all these crazy things. That must make it awesome, like easy to transition to the fluidity of a fight scene, when you're writing. So talk to me about that transition from Cirque du Soleil. What did you learn from there that you took with you while writing?
Well, it is a good observation that you make that. I do feel I pull on a lot of sometimes personal experiences. I was a flying trapeze artist for a while and a catcher, and I had to do I kind of come from the classic circus. But there's two types of circus, really. There's the classic traditional circus, and then there's contemporary circus, which is more Cirque du Soleil. But in both cases, you learn body language and awareness, and you become there's a lot of awareness on a lot of different levels, and that really did help me to kind of envision what's going on. I was also a martial artist for a while too, and fortunate or unfortunate, if you've ever been in those situations where your adrenaline really speeds up, time almost seems to slow down, and so that I think really helped me write some of the things that are going on, especially in the novel, where you can be a little bit more descriptive about those little moments in time. But I've always loved comics, and Dick Grayson is a circus guy, and also written very well by Mark. And so like there's always just been this relationship and this thing for me personally, going back and forth, where you have your heroes, you have your tights, you have your acrobatics, you have your do or die moments that are there that are critical in actual acrobatics. And that's always, I think, has helped me in writing that stuff.
I also assume that there's a great, when you're performing in a group setting like that, something athletic like that, there's a lot of trust where you are on something and you have to trust the person to catch you or whatever. Does that also translate when you're writing something collaboratively, where you take a big jump or leap somewhere with your writing, trusting the other writer to catch you as well? I can
That's a good
imagine
question.
that would be a parallel.
I think that's a fair thing to say. The thing about co-writing that people don't immediately understand is that it's not like I do half the work and he does half the work. It's more like we both do 3/4 of the work, because there's that overlap in there. And that's the part where we're collaborating and going back and forth on stuff, and, looking at Al's stuff. And I don't want to say teaching him how to write comics, because he's a quick study on this stuff. But, that's the joy of it for me, is the collaboration. That's the fun part. The sitting in my own chair by myself in a vacuum and just typing is not the best part. So it's good that I have somebody who I know knows the lore, knows the world backward and forward. So it's not incumbent upon me to know every last detail, and can come and, and sweep up behind me when I make a mistake here or there.
Yeah. So, sounds like a lot of fun. Was there a moment when you guys had a moment in the script where you had totally different instincts on where to take the story and you had to figure out a middle ground?
I don't think so. Al, do you think? I can't think of anything.
No, actually, I think it's been, it's been fantastic. And first of all, he's been very generous with all his knowledge and experience to help me out. And just to think about the craft that, of writing and writing comic books in particular, has been really rewarding for me. And to link it back to the partnership thing too, when you are a partnership, you're going to link it to acrobatics or circus and stuff like, there's the equal partners doesn't mean equal work. There's always a flyer and a catcher. They're doing different things, but together they make the act, and I think if circus has taught me anything, it's that being a good partner to whatever I'm doing, whether that's writing or, in other areas of the life, and being a good teammate. And he's an incredible partner. And I also have from circus has learned to listen to people that have, been there and done stuff before, because, the proof is in the pudding. And so, of course, that's been really great. And no, I as far as like storylines, and that kind of stuff, I think we jive, and we both got fun sense of humor. We sit around, we can, we see similar observations on things, and it's fun.
Was there ever a moment then on the inverse where Mark came up with something that was like, oh my gosh, now I have to rethink the whole universe, this is so good? Like, was there something that he brought to the table that you never expected for your universe?
Well, I will say this, in one of his video things, he's like, you guys are going to be entertained beyond belief. And I just went, oh my God, I better start writing really, it's going to be good, so it maybe doubled my efforts, but yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Well, I was going to say, here's the thing. One of the reasons that I'm a good fit for what I do in terms of playing in superhero universes is that I recognize pretty quickly where the guardrails are, right? Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean I'm not willing to push boundaries and see what I can but there's nothing that I'm coming up with that I don't feel comfortable enough in this world yet
Mhm.
to come in and say, okay, here's a brand new idea that's going to blow the lid off this whole thing. At this point, what you've built is great, and I'm going to play in the sandbox before we go, kicking down the walls.
Yeah.
Let me get in there first, and especially because it's built so broadly, it is built just fantastically, and it is there's so much room in here. I don't feel a
Mhm.
need at this point to come and come in with a big, seismic lore changing ideas. But give
Yeah.
me time. Maybe
Oh,
something will
yeah,
happen.
yeah. So I guess let's this is such a multimedia, multi-format storytelling. So I myself, hadn't actually heard about Alpha Clash, if I'm being honest with you guys, until this interview came up and I did my research for it. Where do you think people should start? Is the comic that you're writing, Rising Empires, Alpha Clash Rising Empires, a good place to start? Should they start with the novel, start with the card game? Where do you think they should start?
Al, what about you? What do you think?
I think, well, it's sort of by design. You can start almost anywhere
Mhm.
because you can enjoy the game without ever reading the book, and you can read the book without ever really playing the game. And people have, and they enjoy the book. And same with the comics. I would say from a story perspective, yeah, read the novel first because that's the
Mhm.
baseline source material that we
Yeah.
kind of launch everything also off of. So what Mark and I are writing takes place 5 years after the big events of the book.
Which is the awakening, right? Is what it's called.
Right.
Mhm.
The
Exactly.
emergence of these new superpowered beings called alphas, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So there's the progenitors are the oldest beings in the universe, and they have what they call progenitor's gambit, and they send out a wave that awakens people kind of at random, and they develop these powers. And they also have this innate pull, and they call it the pull towards each other to kind of fight for supremacy. And then these guys, the progenitors, basically bet on what's going on,
Mm.
and in the novel, there a character steps forward to try and break the cycle because this has been a cycle that goes on for eons,
Yeah.
and sort of explains in a little bit of an ancient aliens way, like, hey, this is why we actually got pyramids or unexplained
Or
ruins in.
Atlantis falling to the ocean was another
Correct. Was an
moment of these
alpha
alphas
class.
fighting.
Yeah, exactly. And there's usually a catastrophe that ends the alpha clash and that gambit, and then the remnants of humanity kind of like make up what happened, and that's where we get our myths and legends from, and all this other stuff, And so, this one character steps forward to sort of to break that cycle because she likes Earth the way it is right now, and she's kind of sick of the system, and that's where the events unfold in the novel. And now 5 years after that is where Rising Empires comes from, and people are dividing their teams and they're building factions around a new a world that's new to having superheroes in it.
Is it, Mark, is it fun to jump into a world that's already built a little bit, but also jump ahead 5 years so that like now the world is starting to come, they maybe come to terms a little bit with these powerful alpha characters, and we're almost, I want to say, at whatever you're starting at the new normal versus starting at the beginning of that big event.
Right. Well, the opportunity it gives me is that it allows me to bring in a little bit of my point of view on how this world could work and how our world works and how that all works together. Because the baseline of our story, without giving too much away, is that it's been 5 years, and then this tech bro, engineer, super inventor guy has
Was
been
it Dr.
piping up in
Summers?
no, different guy.
Oh, okay.
Has been popping up in the last 4 or 5 years, and he's come up with some amazing world-changing technology, and he's just built an empire out of this. And it seems like the sky's the limit. And our alpha characters, Dr. Summers and his allies like Huff and some of the others, are going in realizing that there's some connection between him and the awakened, but he's not one of them. So
Mm.
what what is he doing? Is there some way he's capitalizing or monetizing this? That's a long way of saying that we live in an age of late stage capitalism where if
Yeah.
somebody can do something, someone else will find a way to make money off of it.
Yeah. That's something that I feel like in society, it's like my wife just recently started baking and she loves it and it's her big joy. And everyone goes, "Oh, you could sell these. You could sell these." And that's like, you don't always, I commoditize my hobby of reading comic books into this channel, but
Right.
sometimes I miss when it was just something I did to, have fun.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
in the synopsis of the storyline, you talk about it mentions this reluctant genius. You've written geniuses before in other comics, such as your awesome Fantastic Four run. How does this genius compare to other geniuses that you've written? How are they different?
He's a little more reluctant to step into action. He's a lot of, I mean, yes, I've written a lot of geniuses in comics because I love writing geniuses in comics. I love writing
Because you
guys who
are
are
a genius of comics in a way. A
I
little bit of
also,
a
I just,
self insert.
I like writing guys. I like writing characters who challenge me because a lot of my writing is building the plane while I'm flying it.
Yeah.
So not having a real concrete, step by step outline as I go because it's more fun to figure it out as I go. And so I like characters who are smarter than me because they challenge me to come up with things that they can't deal with. So all this to say that the ones I've dealt with so far, like Brainiac 5 in the Legion, or whether it's Mr. Fantastic in the Fantastic Four, they're still to some degree people of action. And
Mhm.
Dr. Summers is anything but. Like he's like me. He's like that his idea of exercise is walking to the post office and back, maybe.
Yeah.
Um, to Summers, he's so wrapped up in his brain that you know, I don't even know that he's ever thrown a punch, before this
Yeah.
story starts. Al, is that the fair assessment?
Well, he did throw a punch. There's this one part where because
Oh, right, of course. Yeah.
yeah, he has a so he's like not your typical genius also in the sense that he's not really like a Tony Stark, let's say.
Right.
This guy's more of a archaeologist and a humanitarian
Yeah.
study,
Anthropologist. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
anthropologist. Yeah. So he does rely on his innate knowledge of that to like go, oh, I can figure out this language. That's all these Sanskrit things or all these runes from ancient times that mean something that different things. And he does take a I could tell him about there's one fight scene. He uses an ancient weapon
Yeah.
to kind of level the playing field for himself. That is the great. He's like, oh, this is the great equalizer for and he'll pontificate on
Yeah.
on that kind of stuff. And he does have a side effect of his mind, which is constantly going. So he never sleeps.
Oh,
You know?
wow. That's interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
that gives you a lot more time, but man, that guy just, I mean, for him, he seems reluctant. He said he's reluctant to action, but yet he doesn't ever get to rest. So that must be a
Right.
weird limbo state to be in where he's not ever in action, but he's never fully at peace, I'd imagine.
He really isn't. And part of the curse of because I love powers with a curse.
Mhm.
And part of the curse of his power is that if you're that much in your own head all the time and your brain is working on a level that maybe six other people in the world, if that, are able to keep up with you, then your relationships suffer.
Yeah.
Once you've been awakened, the conversations you're having, the everyday conversations you're used to having with people, just seem dull and mundane.
Yeah.
And he's not the part of the difference too is like like a character like Brainiac 5 is snide about his genius.
Mhm.
Summers is anything but. Summers is just sad that
Yeah.
he's not like he's not holier than thou, but he doesn't hold his knowledge over you. He's not snide and prideful about it. He doesn't consider you less than equal. It just it's this gap that he has
Yeah.
between him and the rest of humanity, including his wife. Like what do we talk about now? I don't want to
That
talk
makes
about
me
groceries. Yeah.
That makes me think back if you guys ever read Alan Moore's Miracle Man, where this
Yeah.
guy gets these powers and he's no longer able to relate to his wife. Would you say that Dr. Summers, does he feel, I mean, he is reluctant, but would he trade his powers to go back to being normal in a heartbeat if he could? Like, would he prefer to connect with his wife? Or does he feel, I guess, like, does he feel like as an alpha or this new enhanced person, does he feel like he needs to be that way?
That's a great question, Al. What's your take?
I would say he would dabble. He would think about the thought process of maybe like, he definitely he misses the connection that he has. And then, and it is but he's also always calculating profit loss, risk versus reward kind of thing. So, he does see things sometimes as like an obligation to the bigger picture at large, which is why he decides to take action in this book. Cause he's like, listen, we're going to be heading towards a really big problem here if we don't do something. Yeah. And so that's why he decides to involve himself with something and make his theories public. And then, but then, yes, he does value his relationship with his wife. And I think she's a minor role, but critical in the sense that he would do some stuff for her that he's always keeping her top of mind, and realizes that she probably wants me to solve a problem here, and I could do this and teach her how to do that in like 2 seconds, blah, blah, blah. But I'm not,
Well, I almost feel like that's every marriage is like the first. I've been married for about 3 years. Yeah. And the big lesson that every other married man taught me, like you said, you learned from other people in that had, the proof is in the pudding, is very much like ask your wife first. Do you want a solution or do you want an empathetic ear? And that's the thing that messes you up the first 2-3 years of marriage that you have to learn.
And that messes up him here all the time because everything to him is an equation, right? Everything to him is a problem to be solved. And so more than ever, like he really is struggling with this idea of just sitting down and listening because his brain is always full and moving and racing at 1,000 miles an hour anyway. So it's a struggle.
Yeah. It sounds like he spins a lot of plates at all times. Yeah. And while also still being reluctant. So I guess my next question would be, if you had to describe the other person's writing style in one sentence, what would you say?
Oh, one sentence. I mean, with Al,
you can do 2 sentences. There's no rules here.
Well, Al's writing is well thought out. It is colorful, which I like. It is visual, which I really like, because Al understands this was way more than one sentence, but
you can use as many words. That's just a way to make it a fun question.
Well, the thing is that what I appreciated about Al from get-go is that when you hand me a novel and tell me a novelist wants to write comics, I want to blow my brains out every time because invariably what I have gotten in the 40 years I've been doing comics and been editing and publishing stuff, anytime a novelist comes to the table and they try to turn out a comic book script, it is the least visual thing in the world. It is all because novels, prose, but novels especially is really about internal conflict as much as anything else. And comics it really kind of needs to be about external conflict, even if it's internal conflict, represented by external conflict. But that's what that's all about. So that Al didn't come to the table with a script that was all introspective and nothing is really visually happening was an enormous sigh of relief.
Yeah. And I would imagine that probably comes from the athleticism side of you or the movement side of you, where it's not all internal conflict. There's got to be action and movement going on in your book. What would you say about Mark's writing style?
Whoa, my gosh. That's an entire series of podcasts. First of all,
don't let me stop you, Al. Please.
Yeah.
Take all the time you need, Al.
And you can also say nice things about me. I'm not a writer, but I'll also take compliments.
Jake, I love your eyes. You're beautiful.
Right. Oh, thank you.
No, I've been a fan of Mark Waid forever, and I was actually just moving some stuff around. I moved into a new house, and it's true story. Before we actually had even kind of formulated a deal, but we were just talking and having talks and stuff, I was like, oh, look at this comic book box that was kind of, you have those long boxes that just have been, moved around 100 times and are falling apart and stuff. So I bought new boxes to rebox some of these things. And I'm going through and I go, oh my God, it's the Flash Dead Heat series from 1996 with Mark Waid. I think it's 95 or 96, and I'm like, Here's a guy. His writing is legendary. It's absolutely a part of the fabric of Americana and comic landscape.
Thank you.
And then and why is it? Maybe because it can be very introspective. It can be very humorous. It can be very personal, and people relate to these crazy characters that, in all different manners, because I think that's where he finds a really great thing. I think everyone can connect to some of his characters because he writes with such empathy and such sometimes realism in a fantasy setting. I mean, it's a kind of
inside out storytelling,
Yeah,
Inside
exactly,
out, man. I think the first thing I think about with all these characters is, okay, how do you see the world? What is your perception of the world? Like we came up with Dr. Sommers, but then, my questions to Al were like, okay, the thing about being distant from other people, the thing about how he lives his life on a day-to-day level, and what obstacles does this create, but also what opportunities does this create? And it's that way from character to character. That's just, to me, the fun of it, to me, is living in their shoes. I always say about Halloween that I could care less about Halloween because it's amateur hour to me. Like I'm standing in costume, in costume or in somebody's shoes every day, all day. So I don't need to be a goblin. Like I get to be Superman for, a month at a time.
Yep. I think what's interesting to me is that you said it was a relief that the stuff that he had written wasn't like all this internal conflict. But I feel like so much when I hear you guys both describe Dr. Sommers, it is his internal conflict of how he no longer feels like he's on the same level as other people. Can we speak at all to any of the external conflict he'll face in the book without spoiling anything? What are some of the external conflicts that he'll face?
Well, this the classic hero's journey of I'm not diving into this head first. He has to sort of be dragged into it by circumstance. But once he is, as Al said, he feels a responsibility, and he also feels the call to some degree too, right, Al? He feels the call of the awakened, and so he's drawn to this situation to some degree as well.
Well, and I think his intellect does come with a lot of confidence in the sense that, I'm in it now, so I can figure this out,
Yeah.
And he's really good at using his resources, which I think that's a sign of a lot of people's intellect. Like, sure, you can be a standalone genius, but Einstein had people helping him in the labs, other people, and so his ability to kind of pull on the other people around him and say, oh, look at this and check that out, and make some connections there, I think is where he ends up thriving. I think without getting, and of course it's a comic book, so there's action and punches thrown and bullets. And all that stuff.
I heard, you broke the news here that he does throw a punch, so we're on the way out for that.
He does throw a punch.
Well, the other thing about him, to get back to your question, is that if he has a shortfall, I would say, Al, with something we haven't actually talked about, but I think it's inherent in what you've written, is that if he's a shortfall, it's that he has that confidence, not to the point of arrogance so much, but he has that confidence to the point where he doesn't remember the truism that very seldom does a plan survive first contact with the enemy, right?
Yeah.
He's good about figuring out the variables. He's very good about figuring out all the possibilities, but there's always that X factor, and which frustrates him and trips him up sometimes.
Yeah, and he'll go, okay, time to replan.
Time to regroup, yeah. Which is hard to do when people are throwing punches.
I like that. I like that quote from the TV show The Flash, where he goes, I think it's Leonard Snart that goes, make the plan, execute the plan, expect the plan to go off the rails, and throw away the plan. It sounds like he doesn't follow that rule.
I always say in coaching, plan to improvise.
Yep.
Because
that's good. Yeah.
Because it happens too, like when we're doing acrobatics or anything, like you go, oh man, this is gonna be great, blah 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 blah, happens, and then you go, wait a minute, and then you have to kind of make a last minute adjustment. So
next I want to ask, Mark, I feel like you lived in some of like the DC worlds or the Marvel worlds so much so that you just got to write the new history of the DC universe. So you know these worlds like the back of your hand. When you go to a new universe where there's already established lore to a degree, does it feel like going on vacation to a new world? Like you get to escape the DC Marvel world and you're like, this is like it's like a new place you get to check out that like and you get to explore.
That's interesting. I mean, I don't think of it as vacation so much because I still
I
have
mean,
to
it is work.
type.
You're working.
I still have to type.
Yeah.
That is the hard. Writing is actually fun. It's the typing part that sucks, you know. So it's the actual having to craft the word that sucks. But it is no, it is a break in the sense that it is a chance to get to know an entire new cosmology, right, from the ground up. Whereas, as you say, I know the Marvel and DC universes like the back of my hand. So it is fun also because there's not 80 years of continuity
Yeah.
dragging down the possibilities and sort of limiting the possibilities and the characters are defined, but they're not so well defined that there's not room in there to find new things about them. Whereas, somebody like there's not much new you can find in Superman, but there's some new stuff you can find in all these characters. That's the fun part.
So I guess my next question would be if a brand new reader picks up your new comic, Alpha Class Rising Empire, and only takes away one idea, what do you hope that it is?
Ooh, good one. Buy the cards. No, I don't.
Wait. Now's the segue. Open the pack.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, but I do want to hear the answer to the question while
yeah. Okay. All right. What do you think? Yeah.
I just want to. I honestly, I just want people to be entertained. Like, we can always have. There's always room for story. There's always room for development. There's always room for fun characters, and yeah, like I think comics are a serious business, but we can't take ourselves too seriously in that sense. And it's just a great art form to kind of find some good expression and stuff like that. So if they're taken away, I just would really hope people find a nice kind of a fresh take on because I don't think I'm reinventing comic books by any stretch of the imagination, but we got some fun characters, have a good time with it, some great talented artists, and actually have some fun too with our cards.
Yeah.
Yo, I want to see some cards getting open. Let's we'll
do it.
So I just opened our pack. This is our Echoes of Eternity pack.
Cool.
Here, and it just busted open some cards here. And I don't know if you can see any of this stuff.
I'll make you the solo layout.
Yeah. All right.
There you go. Okay.
Adjust my things here. So these are actually all parts from another Cosmic Conquest series. And also a Kids Being Kids comic. That's what these. So we have some great artists that then these scenes come out right out of our comics themselves.
Oh, nice.
So these cards,
so there'll be some
playing the card game. You can be immersed. Yeah. A standalone, the card game is great. People love it. It's got some great artwork onto itself. And then if you're reading the comics, they go, "Oh my gosh, this is when this happens." And blah, blah, blah. And also, he's done a really great job. Ridge and Garrett are the co-creators and our CEO, and they're the real game mechanics behind all our game stuff. So anything that I write is gamified. So like, there's a rule that can be applied to use this power in this game with this strategy, et cetera, et cetera. So
was there one thing that you wrote in your story that they were like, I don't know how we're going to make that a mechanic. And then they figured it out and it surprised you?
Not really, except I do have a character named Mean Streak, and it comes out in the book, and he's sort of like he's a speedster, kind of like the Flash, but he doesn't go light speed or anything like this. And he's got these things that come out of him, and they're streaks, and we don't really know if he's actually talking to them or if he's insane and just talking to something. But these globules kind of streak around and they intercept bullets and all that stuff. And so he can send them out and they report back to him mystically somehow of like, oh, they can, he can smell a hot dog from, a hot dog vendor down the block because the streak is over there looking it out, And so those kinds of, that kind of element, how do you want to play that in the card game is really cool. Cause then you can throw it as a block. You can, send your streaks out on errands and do things like that. So it's kind of fun. That's
awesome.
I think, a unique one.
Yeah.
I
Let me jump back
you
real
guys
quick
can't
and-
sell me on it. I can't collect a new thing. One thing that Mark said in my last interview, I was really excited for my first interview with Mark. I am excited for this too. I had my wife watch it, and Mark said his piece of advice that my wife has never let me forget. You said you'll get more books, but no more bookshelves. So my wife,
yes,
I don't know if you
rule.
can see behind me. My wife there's no room for any more bookshelves. So my wife has anytime I'm like, oh, I could fit a little 4 square right there. She goes, Mark Waid said no more bookshelves.
No, the rule is if if it comes in, something else has got to go out at this point. So
yeah, we're both in Southern California, so there's less space than other places.
Yeah.
Let me jump back. Let me jump back for a second too. I want to clarify. I made that flip answer about what I want people to take away is buy more cards or whatever. By the way, and that's
let's hear the real answer.
Well, the flip answer. The real answer is that what Al said. I just want people to be entertained by this. I mean, more than ever, it feels like in this world, we are craving escapist entertainment. And I think we're going to do our best to give you that. Again, it's not so escapist that there's not things that are about it that are relatable to the real world. But at the same time, what I want people's takeaway is when you ask that question, I'm just reminded of what Mark Twain says about theme. He's always said, like, theme is what other people figure out afterwards. I just write. And I feel like kind of that same way about here. We're just kind of putting our nose to the grindstone and trying to entertain people and trying to write. And if there's takeaways, then that's for other people to decide. But on that same note, takeaways, one of the things I also appreciate about the first off, the editorial freedom we've been given and the writer's freedom we've been given, but also about the way the whole Alpha Clash system is set up, is that there's 2 ways you can go about this. You can write a comic that makes people feel like they need to read the novel and need to get the cards and stuff, and that's a perfectly legitimate business model to do. But I think it's better and more fun if you make them want to get the cards, if you make them want to read the novel, if you because that way there's no feeling of like, oh, I'm missing something unless I get all the pieces, which can be very intimidating and can be very expensive sometimes too.
Yeah.
I like it better. I like this better when it's like, no, we've entertained you enough where you are hungry for more, not that you feel like you are required by homework rules to go out and get more stuff.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where there's so many different stakeholders, I'd imagine, in something like this, where you want to write a comic that first and foremost anyone can pick up off the stands or off the Kickstarter and read and have a good time. But if you're someone that's like deep in the,
that's very much the case here. We set out to write a comic that if you know nothing about the Alpha Clash universe, you're in. I mean, that you don't have to know anything going in.
I would imagine there's also like a wink or a seed you can plant if you are deep in the universe. So you want to you have your primary stakeholder, I'd imagine, and then you want to put little Easter eggs in for the people that
you'll get a little bit more out of it if you know the world. Yeah.
One of the things that I always try to impart on my channel, because the whole point of my channel is to get more people reading comics and now buying cards. No, what I tell people is when they go, oh, is this canon or it breaks continuity? I say, like, I feel like canon is seasoning, but it should never restrict the story that needs to be told. You know what I mean? And I think some of the best stories have freedom. So it sounds like you guys are writing a story that stands on its own completely, but might have a wink or two for the people that have played the card game or read the novel and things like that. Al, I would ask then, what would you say is the biggest difference from you as the writer of the novel to now writing a comic script or helping with the comic script? What was the big change for you?
It's a interesting cerebral exercise, because I also I realized that, hey, listen, I got to know my audience. And when I write for a novel, let's say, I'm writing, my audience has to really put it in their mind and all this other stuff. And I want to see, like, you know, be as relatable to as many people as I can, and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes when I'm writing for the comic, actually, I think about two things. I write the panel description for the artist. You know, like
Yeah.
I go, you know, oh, and then the dialogue is for everybody, you know, but the panel is like for the artist. And then I go, oh man. So if I was, you know, imagining this, and, you know, I do that. And then that's how I kind of write this. And I do both with this. What would I like to read? You know, what kind of makes me laugh? And,
Yeah.
you know, if you sit around and watch me write, which would be like watching paint dry, but
Yeah.
you'll every now and then you'll see me go giggle to myself and go, oh, that's kind of funny, or I'm going to put that in there to make so and so laugh, you know. And you know, sometimes it doesn't always make it in the book, but it is fun. And so I have my times. What would I like to read if I just, you know, hopefully, you know, if I walk down the street and something falls out of a tree and I get amnesia, I pick up a book and go, hey man, this is pretty good stuff. You know, like I'd still like that, you know?
Yeah.
I guess let me have a follow. I have a follow-up question here for
Let's
Al.
do it.
So the mechanics of going from a novel where you get to write pretty much as you want to write, and a chapter is as long as it needs to be, and a book is as long as it needs to be, and suddenly shifting to a storytelling medium where you've got 20 or 25 pages and 5 panels a page on average, go. You know, it's a much more constricted form of, like, haiku compared to a novel. So, like, what was the process of adaptation there?
Was it more restrictive or more freedom?
I would actually say a little bit on the restrictive side for me.
Yeah, sure.
I would imagine, yeah.
Maybe not restrictive as like I felt really confined, but it was an interesting puzzle because, and actually Mark was really gracious about this, because I had like 8 panels on, or 9 panels sometimes. And you go, hey, maybe you can get this down to 4 or 5, you know? And they're like, oh, okay. And so, you know, because as a novelist, at least I do. I think very sequentially, and this has got to follow that, and this is going to here, and then when the guy opens the door handle, it's going to creak in a certain way, and blah, blah, blah. And you have to trust your reader that they're going to infer what's happening from your visual panels. Okay,
right.
This guy starts here.
You can do a whole you can do a whole paragraph on the squeak of a door, you know, in a novel. Exactly. But you don't have that advantage in comics. It's a language of economy. So that is the hardest part and it's still a hard part for me after 40 years and 2000 comics. I'm constantly looking at my scripts going, geez, okay, this is a 25 page story crammed into 22 pages. What do I do to cut the fat?
Yeah. I wasn't informed, but how far along are we in the creation of the comic book? Is there an artist announced? Have you guys seen any art yet? Or are you guys still in the scripting phase? Like because when does the Kickstarter start? I want to make sure we promote the Kickstarter that's coming out eventually.
Kickstarter is going to be mid to late January, like probably the 3rd week of January. That's when it starts. We have 3 issues written. The last one is kind of in the editing process right now. And then, we do have I think an up and coming artist. His name is Patty, Pady or Padi. And he's got all our pencils and inks kind of going together, and they're looking really cool. So
nice.
And we hope to have a lot. He's actually moving at a really good pace too, so that we'll have things to promote and show off for the Kickstarter run, you know, when as it's coming up, you know, so you can see previews of panels and, you know, all that stuff, and maybe there'll be a, you know, animated.
But we've been in production for a long time, because, you know, nothing is more frustrating, right, than a Kickstarter that you're backing something that you don't see for a year and a half.
Well, I mean, how long did it take from the first script of Superman Last Days of Lex Luthor to when that came out. I know it. I mean, it can take a long time. So we're coming up
that
on
was
the
8
40.
years. So yeah.
Wow.
We're coming up on the 45-minute mark. So I guess I'll just give the floor to both of you. This is your platform, your chance to sell the book to whoever you want it, whatever you want to say. How would you, my platform is yours now.
It's go ahead,
I'll
Al.
go so you can have the last word, Mark, if you want.
Okay.
Finish strong.
Yeah.
I just hope people, find our book to be entertaining, and a wonderful way to round out a nice overall product and an overall intellectual property, which is Alpha Clash. People can enjoy the cards, the books, and the comic books. And it's just a wonderful opportunity for us to kind of get out there and celebrate the art form and celebrate everything else. And just come out and support our cause. And it's been a pleasure also to work with the legendary Mark Waid. It's not going to disappoint you guys.
That's very kind. Thank you. Same with you. It's been a pleasure to work with Al, and it is continuing to be a pleasure to work with Al. And it is just a chance to come in and not only be entertained, but also to have your eyes open to this entire, as I said, kind of cosmology, right? This entire mythos, this entire series of worlds that these guys have built. You can read the comic without knowing any of this stuff. You're going to get a lot out of it. You're not going to miss anything. But if you know something about Alpha Clash going in, you'll pick up you'll see little Easter eggs that, you might not otherwise see. And then beyond that, we want people to read this, realize that if you know Alpha Clash, you know that in doing this story, we've added stuff to the continuity. We've added stuff to the world they built, and then follow out of that to see what else there is out there with the Alpha universe, because there's a lot of, like you said, like Al said, that for those who just came in, as we said at the top, it's a card game, it is a novel, it's an audio book, it is a comic. All that stuff exists separately, but at the same time, if you want it to weave together, if you want to if you want to play the games and read the novel and all this stuff, that is there for you too. It all fits together beautifully.
I guess my last question then would be, do you guys, since this is so multimedia, do you have a dream, like pipe dream of what you would like a fighting game, a live action movie, an animated? Is there a media you'd love for it to transition into someday?
I mean, I love anime too. That would be, an animated series or something like that. It would be also great. I mean, I love watching all that stuff. So I don't know. That would be cool.
Yeah. Nice. If I see Noah Baumbach or, Vince Gilligan doing an adaptation of this on Netflix sometime, that's very happy, very happy to see that.
Plurbius has been so good. I'm loving that show right now.
Yeah. It is. So what did Carol see under the sheet? Oh my God.
I don't know.
I know, right?
Are they eating people? Do you think, because they don't hurt people, but what else would shock her that much? We'll find out.
We'll find out tomorrow. Yeah. So
yeah, I forgot because I haven't watched his shows in a while, but how slow paced they are. You know what I mean?
But so great.
So great. Well, this was a genuine pleasure. I want to thank you guys so much. If around the Kickstarter time or whenever anything I can do to help promote you guys, just let me know. And everyone, thanks so much for watching. Keep reading and stay brave.
Thank you.